This is the 19th season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, Aftco, Pro Guide Batteries, X-Zone Lures, Shoreline Boat and RV Repair, Spro, Gamakatsu, Big Bite Baits, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. It's day 4 on day 3, and boy, you picked a hell of a day to have day 3 or day 4 on day 3, Frank, because it is going down in the world of professional bass fishing right now.
Well, we need to discuss that, I'm sure, because
you down for a little bass fishing industry discussion right off the hopper?
Absolutely, 100% down for it. And then we're going to get into bass fishing and anything else we want to talk about.
Yeah, that's how it was. This is bass. This is okay. Here's how we're going to get into this. Yesterday, MLF. Okay, there's a mixture of. This is all we know officially right here. This is the press release, the news release that MLF dropped last night. Now, I had to kind of clean this up because as I was copying and pasting the article into Word so I could print it out, I accidentally got Brandon Coulter How to Fish a Whopper Plopper mixed in. So it'll be like all this stuff. And then there'll be a sentence that's just like, there are certain baits that elicit a reaction, Coulter said. Sometimes bass. And I'm like, wait a second, what does this have to do? And I realized I'd mixed up 2 articles together. But they came out with some major changes. MLF yesterday, there had been rumblings of a all hands on deck anglers meeting that I believe was supposed to be today, but because of the grumblings and rumors got moved up to yesterday. They kicked off yesterday with an employees, all hands on deck employees MLF meeting where I guess they kind of laid out to those guys what was going to go down in 24, 25 and beyond. And then they had an anglers meeting yesterday afternoon that consisted of all of the available BPT anglers and incoming MLF Bass Pro Tour anglers. I think 8 that are coming on from, or 8 or 9 that are coming on from the Tackle Warehouse Invitationals. And there are some major changes, Frank.
Let's do them. Let's go through them.
First of all, the bombshell news would be that in 2025, MLF is planning on chopping 30 anglers out of the Bass Pro Tour. They're wanting to reduce the field to the top 50 anglers. Remember, it was 80 anglers when this thing started. Some were handpicked. I guess they were all handpicked because there was really no qualifying because it was a brand new league. Right. They are wanting to take, or they're going to take the top 35 lifetime average. So that would be the 20, 21, 22, 23 and 24 seasons. So out of the 5 years, I think they might even get to drop one of their worst ones. Then they're going to take the top 10 in the standings after that. So then there's your 45 anglers. So if you're not in the top 35 in the lifetime average, if you're one of the top 10 anglers after that, then you get on, and then 5 anglers from the invitationals. So that would be 50 anglers. This is problematic, specifically for those making the BPT in 2024, some of which are friends of the show, some of which you have heard about, but we're talking Keith. I can pull the list up, but there's 8 of those guys. They get 1 year, and their top 35 average doesn't apply in that year.
Right.
So they're literally fighting for 10 spots.
They were supposed to be an angler-friendly association.
That was yeah, we're just at the tip of the iceberg here on what we're doing here, Frank. So then we'll
right. But it was my only
so
comment.
basically what we're saying is And granted, some of these guys who are going to get cut in 25 probably came over after. I mean, there's a lot of anglers that have come over after the BASS and MLF split, but you're going to have a large number of anglers that are now cut from the BPT in 2025 that came over to the land of milk and honey with all these promises in 2019 when the split happened. And just 5 years later, they're out of it because they're cutting it down to 50.
Right, which is kind of BS if you're trying to make a career out of this. You're getting the rug pulled out from your
well, they actually go into, and now we're mixing some a little bit of the behind the scenes things and the press release. We'll stick right to the press release though. Boyd Duckett, president and CEO, his quote is, "The future of our sport is live streaming, catch, weigh, immediate release, and every fish counts." That's right. Returning in 2024 back to every fish counts.
Okay.
The reason they did every fish counts, then they went to every fish counts with variable weight. Last year was the first year they went to best 5. You still catch them all. You still see them all. You still throw them all on the board. They are now returning to every fish counts. Here's what they had to say about that. Scoring on the Bass Pro Tour returned to every fish counts format in 2024 after scoring each angler's 5 biggest per day in 2023. The change will recapture the excitement and pressure of the tour's original format, which I would remind you they changed in
because
2023 because it was they were lacking the excitement and pressure that they thought it would bring to the format, but they're returning to it. We responded in 2023 to fans and anglers that wanted to see how 5 fish scoring would work with our score tracker live leaderboard. It'd work just like it did since it's the beginning of tournament time. Since they went to 5, it was actually 15, then 9, then 7. It's been variable. Said MLF executive vice president. Unfortunately, viewership growth was stagnant. The Pro Tour thrives on intense competition, and the scoring change affected the tour's competitiveness in an unexpected way. By reinstating every fish count scoring structure and having few anglers in the knockout rounds, pros will no longer be able to let their guard down without risk being overtaken or someone climbing the score tracker. I don't even know how to respond to that.
Yeah, I don't either. I have no, I don't know.
And so here's what I did. I reached out to some BPT anglers, a wide variety of BPT anglers over the past 24 hours. They were not, from what I have been told, incredibly instrumental in any of this or ask about it. Or here's the word. I asked one word. I said to all these anglers, I said, if you had one word to describe, and I talked to people across the entire board, right? Journeymen, new guys, everything. Top of the food chain. One word that they used, but bottom of the food chain. I did actually. One word that was very common was the word frustrated.
Well, of course it is, because here, look. If you're in it to make a living at it, to become a pro, and everything changes all the time, there's no status quo. Okay? So now what was the rules isn't the rules. What was the breakdown isn't the breakdown. You can't, how do you formulate anything that way? And then you're throwing 30 guys out the window.
This is in 25. So what we're doing here, the every fish counts is in 24. So 24 is this last year is kind of the last year for all this stuff. They tweaked the format in 2024, 40 anglers in group A, 40 anglers in group B, but then only the top 10 anglers from each group instead of 20 anglers based on their 2-day weights advanced to the knockout round. So there's only 20 anglers instead of 40 in the knockout round. Weights are zeroed for the knockout, and then the top 10 anglers advance to the championship. So there's less anglers that make the knockout round, and then television, the MLF Now live stream. So this is interesting. The label here is titled MLF Now live stream expansion. MLF is adding nearly 20% to its live stream offerings in 2024. That's great, right? 20% increase, more live fishing, more guys on camera. However, they are cutting the days for the BPT. They're not showing the first 2 rounds for the 7 events, so they're cutting like 14 days out of the BPT. They're only showing the final round of the opening rounds and then the knockout in the finals, and they're adding 25 days of team coverage.
Yeah, so
it sounds, and then they're adding 1 day of college, 1 day of All-American, and 1 day of Toyota series, I think.
Yeah, well, seems to me like they don't have it figured out.
They got something figured out. Now, listen, I also understand, and I called Mark up about this, and I said, talk to me about this, Mark, from a business standpoint, right? Because Mark has always been good. Jeffries has always been good with the business side of it. And he's like, man, sometimes you have to do what you have to do to make things work. And you're not going to make everybody happy. That type of, he kind of walked me through how some of the stuff works. So listen, for me talking, I understand how MLF has to say, hey, this is what we have to do to remain at the top of the game, to remain viable. I know this isn't great, but I believe that I'm not even going to get into that now.
No,
we'll just leave it like that at the press release.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to do what's in the best interest of their sponsors.
Yes, that's and I think that is. I will say this, based on the anglers that I've spoken with, it was they, as a whole, were surprised at. And listen, I didn't talk to all of them, obviously, but I tried to get a good swath over the last 24 hours. They were surprised at the lack of input in the new press release that the anglers had. Like I said, frustrated was the word, especially when this was a by anglers for anglers. When you look back if you go back, and it doesn't take that long to find a Google search of some of the key principles and components in 2019 and 2020 when this thing was launched, as opposed to what we just had in the press release from MLF, there's some drastic differences, but it's also business.
Right. And, here's what we're going to do. We're going to find out how well it's going to work or how well it's not going to work. They're going to do what they have to, and then the cards will fall where they fall. You know what I mean? Because the angler has a choice. There's more than one trail. So the anglers have a choice. And if the anglers don't like it, they'll leave. If they do like it, they'll stay, and then we'll see what happens.
And there's some paying tweaks. There's some behind the scenes changes that are taking place. There's some social media and optics tweaking that's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Yeah. So Monday, October 23rd, I'm going to make a call to some of the guys that I didn't talk with
to get a few
over the last 24 hours and see if I can get a few of them on the show. It's really hard right now because a lot of guys are either on, a lot of guys are in the woods, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, 100%, dude. It's that time of year. It's trophy time.
Listen, I don't want this to come across as a bash on MLF, but
it's not coming over as a bash.
Like I said, I'm just talking about what's on here and what the guys are talking about, and it's not an overly positive response.
Well, no, change never is, Matt. I mean, I remember when we were going through some changes in Bassmasters, and it was tough then too. But it was
But
tough
Frank, have
to
the
handle those
anglers
two.
as a whole ever been happy? Like dude,
No.
I know because I fish the opens and we're a
Yeah.
group of anglers now and we're always bitching behind the scenes. But
Right.
you've been in a different era and stuff. Is this just the world we've always lived in as professional bass anglers? You're going to have a big section that's never thrilled with how it's going.
Yeah, here at the end of the day, I'm not going to get into all the politics of the game. I was involved heavily into it when I was fishing, very heavily into it. Called into a lot of very highfalutin meetings with the powers to be, voiced my opinion, et cetera, et cetera. So I have opinions. And the short answer is the anglers are always going to have something to gripe about because we are the players in a sport. The biggest problem in our sport right now, as long as we're going to open a can of worms, I might as well open this and dump it all out. The biggest problem that I have with the sport is, and I was fortunate enough to fish for a long time and pay a lot of bills while I was doing it. We're still fishing for our own money.
Right.
And as a professional athlete, we're still paying to play. And that's what's got to change. That has to change. And when that when that changes, there has to be rules in place to quantify you are a full-time pro. Because then you don't have to pay these fees. Well, this is where the big problem comes into play. And the other thing is it would have to be generated solely and totally on sponsor revenue in order to make that happen. And so when you have a sporting arena that you survive by the sponsorship dollars, okay, you have to keep the sponsors happy. And so this is where all the issues are. So on one end, you're going to see a lot of changes taking place in hopes for a better future, meaning angler relations and sponsor relations with the organization, not anglers individual sponsors, but organizational sponsors. And so when you look at all this, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle that have to come together. And if one piece is missing, the puzzle's never complete. So you're always going to have a yin and yang. You're always going to have, I'm happy, I'm not happy. That's just the nature of the sport. But in order for, there's a few changes that I think, and I'm not in the game anymore, so I have nothing to lose. As a touring professional angler, truthfully, a true touring professional angler, you should not have to pay to play the game. And as long as we're doing that, we're always going to have these issues because nothing is going to be etched in stone because we're always trying to build a better mousetrap. Anyway, that's my 2 cents for what it's worth.
I like it. Yeah, this top 50 thing, there's a lot of, it's going to put a lot of guys out to pasture, Frank. There's no other way to say it.
Well, 100%. And look, I got some things I can nitpick about that, but I'm not going to, because at this point in time, these changes are new, and who knows if it's going to work or not yet. But the reality of it is that you can't take a third of your field and throw them out. That's what's happening.
Here's my theory on this, and see if this makes sense. So depending on who you're working with in the media department and thing, there's 2 ways you can go about it. To me, professional fishing they've used the superstars, but it's always been trying to bring fans and support in with the overall product that is accentuated, highlighted with your superstars, whether that's your KVDs or your Jacob Wheelers or your Edwins or whoever, Skeets. Go on and on like that. It's always been like that. When Ray Scott was calling up Ricky Clunn and Bill Dance and all that, but it's always been about the product as a whole, how it's smooth, how you understand it, you get into everything, and then you've got the superstars. To me, this seems like a shift towards hey, maybe they're going to use their superstars to drive the organization as opposed to enhance the organization. And I say this because of some back end changes that they have made as when it comes to media and social media and marketing have ties with UFC and the PBR and the WWE, which if you look at those models have taken human beings and turned them into iconic people. Ronda Rousey and Conor McGregor, JB Mooney, Adriana Marias, all of the WWE stars. So they're saying, hey, we know that there's a bunch more people in this organization, but we're focusing on these guys because these are the guys that are making us money. Does this make sense, Frank?
Well, but they do that in every sporting venue.
Right, but they're saying,
football,
hey,
baseball,
we've got too many guys with 80 that are wanting a piece of pie. They're wanting a place, they want an at bat, so to speak. So they're saying, hey, if you want to make this work, if you want your stars to become superstars and make you money, they have to be in the forefront at all times. So the way you do that is you cut half of the guys who are not your superstars.
No, because listen, in every sporting event, the guys that are superstars, they get the commercials, they get the notoriety, they build, like you could use the NFL for an example. They take their superstar players and they build off of them. All the other players are important parts of the game, and there's a lot of them, but there's only a handful of the superstars that keep getting all the attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with any sport. Baseball's the same way. You get a good pitcher who can speak in front of a camera and he's lights out on the mound and he's going to get the attention. That's just how it goes. But to say we're going to eliminate these players so we could focus on these players is a bunch of BS, dude. It doesn't matter. The superstars are the ones that everybody knows and talks about anyway. So cutting the field to do that is bullshit. It's just an excuse.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. I know people are we're 22 minutes in. Bass had the E50s, the Elite 50s, exclusive top line. Were you fishing during the time of the E50s?
I did the top 100s and the top 150s, and then it switched to the elites.
Okay, so when the E50s were around, and I wasn't covering it obviously by then, were there a bunch of invitational pros and stuff that are saying, what the hell? There's this elite group of 50 anglers and we're not included in it. And I mean, because that's basically what Bass did back in the day.
Right. So let me ask you, are they doing it today?
No.
Right. Because it didn't work. Here's the truth of the matter. The superstars in bass fishing were built out of the Bassmaster Classic and the Angler of the Year race. That's where the superstars became superstars. The guys that kept making the classic, the guys that kept doing good in the classics, those were the guys that got their notoriety. Every time you dilute things, it makes it harder to pull some guys to the top. Mm-hmm. So you have to have the one venue that separates the men from the boys, so to speak, and that's the classic, that's the cup, those are the cream of the cream of the events. Mm-hmm. When you have a team that makes it to the Super Bowl or to the World Series, you're separating the cream from the rest of at least for that season, because it's a professional sport, so it should have an ebb and flow to it. That's where you build the superstars. That's how you build the brands. Cutting the players down to a manageable amount of guys so it's easier to film, it's easier to cover, it's easier whatever, is bullshit, because we're playing the game, and everybody that qualifies to be, either you qualify for the elites, qualify for whatever the heck you want to qualify for. When you make that qualification, that's another rung up the ladder. And the next ladder from there is the championship or the angler of the year race. And so you have these, that's how you build the brands. And then you use those athletes, you use those anglers in your marketing, in your advertising. Look, I mean, KVD and Iconelli did it better than anybody. And that's not a slam on anyone.
They're just the best at it.
They're the best at it. They were marketable.
The fishing and the marketing.
Right. They were marketable. They knew what they were doing. They can get up and you promote within. You don't cut out to build something. You gotta you're cutting 30 guys out. How do you know a guy's not having a slump and then he's going to come out of it and be the next superstar? You don't know that. He was good enough to qualify to get there in the first place.
Here's a quote about it from Boyd Duckett. By focusing on 50 anglers in a more compact event that's easy for both diehard and casual fans alike to follow, will do what other successful leagues have done to grow. This is where I get my theory from of what they're doing here. Will do what other successful leagues have done to grow. Focus on a small group of the highest performers and make them the most visible personalities in the sport.
Yeah, that and then I can just tell you for a fact that I don't want to say that's propaganda.
It will also allow us to enhance what are already the sport's best payouts. So, I mean, he's saying right here, their plan, their goal will do what other successful leagues have done to grow. Focus on a small group of the highest performers and make them the most visible personalities in the sport, which in all honesty is what they're doing when they made an 80 angler Bass Pro Tour in 2020.
So
three short years later, I mean, you're part of that group. You come over to be a part of it. Now you're
not.
Like I said, you're put out to pasture.
Yeah. So name me an organization that did that.
UFC. PBR, a lot of the individual deals where you're trying to take something that is a little bit abstract to the casual fan and trying to make them appreciate it. And the easiest way to appreciate it is to be able to latch on to one person and understand their greatness. And that brings you back, not because you want to know who wins the PBR in Houston, but because you want to see how that one bull rider who, always stays on the bull does, or you don't follow the UFC and don't care what the rankings are, but you want to watch Conor McGregor fight every week. So you try to do the same thing in fishing where, hey, you may not follow the BPT and who's making red crest and who's in the cut and blah, 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 but you want to watch Jacob Wheeler kick people's ass.
Yeah. Except if you don't like fishing and you don't follow fishing, you don't give a shit. So
anyway, that's like I said, this is all just a discussion.
Yeah,
this is a show that is based on a discussion. We've done a show basically every single day of the week for the past 20 years. We navigated through with Mark at the helm through the split for bass in Major League Fishing. There's going to be stuff said that people don't like on both sides of it. Opinion-based show. And like I said, I want to try to be fair and give I'll reach out to MLF, have them on. I'm going to have a panel, try to have a group of guys from MLF on. But I mean, anything you want to do to wrap up? I mean, we're half an hour into the show, but like I said, this is what happens when you switch day 4 to day 3, because we have a bunch of shows coming up. We have Ben Milliken tonight, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Going to talk about qualifying for the Elite Series. And then tomorrow, big announcement from AFCO and Sunline. We have Casey Shedd from AFCO on and Dave Rush from Outdoor Brands team. So
yeah, I got it. Hats off to the elite qualifiers this year. Good job, guys. Good job out of Ben. He's a good dude, good fisherman. It'll be fun to watch. I'm
glad to have you on here. We've never had I guess you have had a show like this a little bit, but usually it's just straight up techniques, which we're actually going to get into in this show. We can't have 2 shows that get totally derailed.
We'll get into it.
Okay. Before we do, all right, let's take that and let's toss that down there.
All
right.
Turn
the page here, but
turn the page.
One thing.
Oh, money.
Court made
dude.
that last night. That's the Frank Scalish BTL Halloween pumpkin.
Oh, dude, that is
You should see this thing lit up. That's you right there, loaded to the cork. Same logo. See that? Look at how perfect that is.
She has skills, man. She has
Yeah.
skills.
So here's my deal, Frank. Do we have any like lure net stuff that we could give away? Because it is only October 18th, and I'm thinking if you can tag me and Frank on Instagram.
Just do it. Are you talking pumpkin carving?
Yes, I want to
Yes.
Best BTL fishing Frank Scalish pumpkin carving competition, and the winner gets a set or a specific lure or something.
Yeah,
Are
I'll
we
make
good
it
on doing
happen.
that?
I'll make it happen. Yeah, let's do that. That's badass.
You-
I'll make it happen, dude.
Okay. Some autograph lure or something that you can send to the winning listener, and we'll decide it on the show. But you have to tag, at Frank Scalish and Matt Pengrek on Instagram.
Yeah, and tag LureNet too.
Yes, and tag LureNet.
Let's let LureNet get bombarded with beautiful.
Yes, but I'm just saying. So that one, Courtney did such a great job on that. She's like, "Are you going to help?" And I was like, "Hell no, that's like intricate." And she's really good at that. I did the pumpkin seeds.
Good for you.
Toasted the pumpkin seeds
and salted them for
no cinnamon sugar.
Oh, all right, cinnamon sugar.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have
Here's
to
the
try
other
that.
thing that I learned: the head of the pumpkin. Like I always just cut it in a circle on the top. Look, little notch right there.
Yeah.
If you cut a notch out, then the notch corresponds with that. You always know which direction the hat goes on.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm gonna tell you that I knew that from a long time ago.
I think we got through that first segment, don't you? Am I gonna get any hate mail for that first segment?
Well, I don't know about you, but I'll get it. But I'm all about the angler. But I understand that no money, no game. So it's
no
gotta
league,
be right.
No
it's gotta be
money.
it's gotta be a happy mix between all involved. And the last statement I'm gonna have on that is, if you put 5 people in a room and try to get the same answer out of all 5, it's probably never gonna happen. So anyway, enough said.
You sent me some crazy pictures last night. That sounded really bad. That sounded really bad.
Yeah, that sounded horrible, dude.
you
Yeah, that's right. That was really cool. Thanks for that one, buddy. Yeah. Matt's dying over there.
Oh, I'm literally sweating. Look at how red my face is now.
That's fabulous. No, yeah, you guys, we're gonna talk fishing and we're gonna get in detail and I'll make it fit to whatever time we have left. And if we run over a minute or two, who cares? Yeah. But so I've been literally like, Geppetto or the Dunkin' Donut guy. I have been painting and creating like a madman. We have so much cool stuff about to come out. And I haven't had a lot of opportunity to hit the water. So in the last probably 8 days, I actually got out 3 times. One time was to film a video, which is it's a fat boy video, but it's not so much a fishing video. It's a lot of what this bait actually can do, and what it comes through, and how to fish it properly. Blah blah blah. And that day started out fantastic. Then I got to go and just go for fun for myself, bass fishing. And our fall, we're gonna get into fall. Our fall here up north is a little farther ahead. The farther south you go, the farther behind you are from us. So I had a hunch that this particular place I went, square billing and flipping, was going to be the deal. As a backup, I put on some covert spinner baits and some other extraneous stuff just in case conditions weren't exactly what I thought. and I went fishing, and it turned out to be exactly what I thought it was going to be. I literally, there's an old bait called a bomber square A. And I'm an idiot because I have some and I didn't bring them up here. They're in the basement. That when I started fishing the elites, this little square bill paid dividends for me when others weren't working out very well. And so I have some new colors in the next gen colors in the bomber square A. They're out now on LureNet, blah blah blah. Anyhow, there's a color electric shad that I was really fond of when I made it, and I've been catching them on the Fat Free series with that color. And so I said, I gotta see if this square A is gonna work in this dude. It was one of the best fishing days I've had in a long time. For one, I got to actually target fish and fish cover instead of structure all the time. I got to go up tight and fish cover, and I put the smack down on him, dude. It was a June bug lizard in the square A all day long, and I had this one cover element. I caught 4 off basically the same leaner. I caught 4 off the same leaner, and that's how it was the whole day. If I caught 1 on the square bill, I'd go back with the lizard and catch another one. And it was just like that the whole day. By the end, in fact, I didn't even wind up fishing the whole day. I left at 3:00, and I left catching the crap out of them. So it was just so much fun. And then yesterday, Matt, I'm gonna have to thank Matt for this one. When I went down, and everybody knows the crappie we caught when I went down in January to see Matt. What did we fish, Matt, really in total? A day and a half in total?
Yeah.
Okay. So I saw enough. Yeah. I saw enough and learned enough in that day and a half to advance, to take that to I went crappie fishing yesterday. Holy moly, dude. Me and the dude I went with, we probably caught 80 of them. Now, when we talk about this crappie thing, and I'm not, this ain't about crappie because we're going to get into bass in a minute, but when we do this crappie thing, Matt always says you got to let the big ones go, and you got to be conscious because we could do some damage. That is an understatement because I wound up taking a dozen crappie home, and honestly, I could have taken 70. I mean, they were all nice fish. I wound up saying I'm going to go 12 to 15 inches, and everything else, whether it's bigger or smaller, goes back. And so that's what we did. It was an unbelievable day. I mean, that's just, that's part of the 12 I brought home.
Those are the pictures that Frank was sending me last night, folks.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thanks for clarifying that. That was really good. And then, so now so I have to thank Matt for that because I get very excited every time I learn something new in the fishing game, and whether it's for bass or whatever species, anytime I learn something new, it excites me because I've got something else I can dive into. And so now I'm designing something for Bobby Garland for crappie.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I've been catching all my fish using that in my game plan recently, all my crappie on it, and it is deadly.
Did you post it on your Instagram?
It's not no, I did not give you a good visual on
I think you did.
I did, but it's not clean. It's not clean.
Okay, I won't say it then.
I made sure it was not decipherable.
Is it? I think it is what I think it is.
It's probably exactly what you think it is. So
It
yes,
2 elements in the bait.
That's also correct. Ooh, my
Sweet.
phone's ringing. I could be fired
Uh-oh.
at this moment.
Uh-oh.
What do you mean you were fishing the other day? Let's just see. Can
Oh,
I leave
I
this
thought,
on
what do you
the
mean
air?
you gave an opinion on the BPT?
Yeah. No, it's not that at all.
Yeah, I'll be like that with my phone for a minute too.
That's
No,
fabulous.
I think we
So
need
anyway,
to talk about
so
bass
now
fishing.
let's get to bassin. So the DD22 colors are out right now on LureNet. Capital BTL 23 is good for the discount for the Fat Boys, the DD22s, and now
Yeah.
they put the Norman NXS out in Mountain Dew, which is a fabulous color, especially when the water is almost clear and not super clear, but not real dirty. It's a really good color. Check those out on LureNet. Yeah, that's a fabulous. That's really like the Bandit root beer chartreuse color. Only on the NXS, we didn't put a lot of green flake on it. It's very sporadic. So in the clearer water, it still translates really, really well.
They got a video on this? They got to have a video on this.
I don't know if they do or don't.
I like the videos. I'm a big fan of the videos.
Well, speaking about videos, my Fat Boy video is going to release today. So you'll be able to see the Fat Boy in action. Yeah.
That'll be on the LureNet YouTube.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you were talking about.
Right. So it's not a heavily flaked bait, which I like. There are times for it and times not for it. And so, and that NXS is a hard dive and plug. We talked about it a million times.
Yep.
So should we talk fall fishing?
Let's talk fall fishing, Frank. What is that? Is that an alliteration?
No, we're going to talk the season fall fishing.
Yeah, an alliteration is a repetition of usually initial consonant sounds in two or more neighboring words.
All right.
Fall fishing, Frank. That's
an
an alliteration.
Okay, I learned something new every day.
Yep. Well, my mom was an English teacher for 40 years, so.
God bless you, my child.
Yeah, I kind of had to learn that stuff, Frank.
My mom was Italian, so I learned how to talk with my hands. Oh my gosh.
We're having a great show today.
I swear to God, we better get into this really quickly.
How many are we up to? 137. I think it might be our last. Is that going to be our last? Yeah. Sorry. We're getting cut to the top 50 after this.
After this, we got to make sure we make the grade. But we have enough to average out, I think. We have enough shows to average out. So we'll be okay. We're going to be all right, guys. So anyhow, do you have any questions, Matt? Do you have anything?
No, God, no. Just talk for half an hour. I don't need to say anything else.
All right. Well, you interject when you need to interject. Okay. So in the fall, early fall is a really tough proposition when it comes to getting these fish, because everything is predicated on two things: bait fish and river channels. Everything is predicated on that. So when I say river channels, that could mean main river channels, secondary river channels, drains, old creeks, et cetera, et cetera. So what I like to do in the beginning of fall is I'll pick a section. First, I'm going to pick a section on the main lake that has everything I want it to have, but it's not creek related. It's main lake related. If you go back to a lot of the past shows, which I'm not going to get into now, there's a faction of bass that lives and spends its entire life on the main lake. There's a faction of bass that live and spend their entire life in the creeks. And then there's a faction of bass that spend most of their life chasing pelagic bait fish. This is the time where you start to get overlap between the main lake fish and the pelagic runners. Pelagic runners are always on the bait. Main lake fish are always on main lake structure. And when the two converge, you got a bunch of bass in a smaller area, just to keep it simple. So when I look at a topographical map, here's a trick. Hey, Matt, can you pull up an avionics map? It doesn't matter which lake it is. Just pull up an avionics map. So here's the trick. A lot of guys go, hey, dude, how do you look at a map and figure it out immediately? And I'm going to tell you the trick right now. So whether you pull the map up on your GPS or you pull the map up on your computer, okay, instead of hyper zooming in on it so you can see every single contour line, back out a couple of clicks so all the tight contour lines start to get black like this here. And they get black on the edges. So you're not seeing the contours super clearly. So then when you look at the map, you can see the structural elements better in the form of flats, etc. So go to give me a place that's got a lot of structure in the main lake area. Yeah, just go to the big triangle. Scroll down. Yeah, the big triangle in the middle of the White Lake. Right there. Scroll up, scroll up. Scroll up real little bit. Stay in the triangle area. Okay, now move the map over to your right so I can see the flat, the big blue flat where it says the name of the lake on it. Okay, right there. Okay, so if you zoom out, okay, that up in. Okay, right there. So you see where all the black lines are. And actually this lake, it works on this lake to a degree, but when you want to look at the flats in the lake, okay.
Give me a lake that's got good flats.
Go to Dale Hollow. Go to any other lake than that one. Or never mind. You know what? I got them printed out, Matt. I'll just show you my printouts. I can do it on the printout. You can go to Amistad. Amistad's a great lake map for that, but I'll do it on my printout.
All right, have at it.
All right. So if you zoom out a little bit and you get all these black lines here, you see how tight they are? They look black in there.
Yep.
You see how all the flats and the tabletops start to stand out real easily. Yep. So this is what I look for when I look at a main lake shot when we come into the beginning of fall. And this is about where I'll leave the map on my zoom. I don't really go real tight into the area till I found the area I like. So this spot here is a very typical main lake spot that I would go immediately first to. And here's why. Because if you look, you've got all these channels that run right into the bank in some capacity. All right. And so what happens is, as the fish are out here on the big balls of bait, as these bait fish start to gravitate, the bass can start relating to the structural elements for ambush points, or the balls of bait will suspend right over the middle of these little channels. Then the bass get underneath the balls of shad until they're ready to get to the shallower cover. So basically I'm following these fish in from the main lake to the main lake bank, but you have to pick a bank that has a lot of these channels in them, because bass use these ridge lines as roads. Bass don't just randomly go from point A to point B. They actually use migration routes to get into these areas. And so that's what you're going to look for on the main lake. Now, what happens is, you're going to have, I always like to have a lot of structural elements in the forms of flats, tabletops, etc. And then what you want to realize is that this is where you're going to get your overlap. In this area right here is going to be your main lake residence and your pelagic overlap right here. This is the whole key area. Now, baits in these areas, I mean, it's typical. You're chasing shad, you're following the shad, Demiki rigs, flutter spoons, football jigs, Carolina rigs, crankbaits. As these bass start to get up into these regions up in here, now you're going to go to square bills, rattle baits, chatter baits, top waters, etc. So your bait choices change as these fish start to move in here. This is the time of year where, honestly, drives me crazy because I have 15 rods on the deck of my boat, and I can't stand to fish like that. I like to be a little bit more honed in. But you see how when Matt blows out on this lake right here, do you see how
This is Amistad.
Do you see how the structure stands out like crazy? Like if you go left of the dam, Matt, go to the flat across the lake left of the dam. Go to the other side of the lake. There you go. Look at how all that stuff starts to stand out. It stands out like a sore thumb. If you blow in super tight, you miss a lot. You might miss a channel split or something to that nature. So when I first look at the map, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to zoom out just enough where the tight contour lines turn black, and then everything starts to stand out a little bit better for you. So now let's go. Now we're going to transition we're going to start to go to creek mouth areas. So in creek mouth areas, this is a unique thing, because this plays differently on different lakes. But for the most part, what I want to do, the first staging areas that the bass are going to use are going to be the creek mouths. They don't just immediately go all the way to the end of them. The first part they're going to stage on is the creek mouth. So in this particular one, this being the creek up in here, this being the main lake, you see we have a nice bluff wall, nice bluff end. And then as these fish migrate into here, you're going to start to see your defined channels. So something like this will be the first area they're going to stage in, is something like this. The thing that I like about this is it flattens out. It's got flat spots on it. The flat spots hold much, much more bass than a steep break. The flatter spots, as you come up to your transition and it flattens out, I'll call those tabletops. As it flattens out and then goes to the next structural element, those tabletops get a lot more bass on them, and usually they're feeding when they're on them. It's a very good high percentage spot.
So is that something you're going to want to check multiple times if you know you have a productive one over the course of the day, because they'll be slid off if they're not feeding, when they are feeding, and have something pushed off? So it's like if you're in the area, stop by, check, see if it's going down. Right,
because they could suspend out here in the trough, in the ditch. They could suspend out here. And then as the wind changes, if the wind's blowing in, the plankton goes in. The bait fish are plankton eaters, so the bait fish follow the plankton in. One common thing I hear all the time is, oh, the wind blew the bait back there. Wind does not blow fish anywhere unless it's a hurricane and they're getting blown off.
Sucking them up and dropping them in your yard.
100%. Which, dude, that happened to me at my old house on Lake Erie.
I think you've told that story one time before, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, it was raining shad in my yard. But anyhow, so the bait fish eat plankton. Plankton is moved via wind and current. So as the plankton moves, the bait fish go with it because that's what they eat, and the bass follow them all in. So that's the common thread here. What makes bluff ends and areas like this good is wood. Wood and debris makes this stuff better, because now they got something they can hold on to. They got something they can ambush from. that turns out to be better. Bait choices for this kind of stuff, typical, same thing, top waters, football jigs, cranks, Demikis, flutter spoons, depending on where the bass are in relationship to this. If I'm fishing the bluff end, I really like to fish jigs on bluff ends and even shaky heads on bluff ends. Depending on what kind of stuff is right on the corner, where the bluff corner's out, there's other baits that I'll throw there as well. But this is a very typical, it's a very typical reservoir scenario that you'll run into, especially on a lot of your Tennessee chains and stuff like that, because they'll have bluffy parts, they'll have flat parts and stuff like that. So you'll see that more there. Now, flatland lakes, probably not so many bluffs, but the same principle applies. You're just using the flats and the channel breaks for that stuff. Once you get inside a creek, we've done the creek breakdown a lot, so I won't belabor it, but take your creek and break it up in 3 sections. The beginning, the middle, the end. Okay, let's call the beginning of the creek mouth. I'm going to call the beginning where it intersects the main lake, but really, if you're going by the way the water flows, the beginning is all the way in the back. And so just break it up into 3 sections, a middle and 2 ends. So as you go into the creek, you're going to look for the same type of stuff, but in the creek. So now part of the part of the thing I'm looking for once I get into the creek is the topography in the creek. I want secondary channels. I want flats and high spots. And so if you follow the main, this is actually a secondary channel because the main channel's down here. This is a secondary channel that splits up. You see you've got flats and high spots on both sides of this thing, all the way up into the pocket, right? So here's the thing. So I looked at this and I said, well, this is interesting because we got some man-made stuff going on here too. And so with the man-made stuff, we've got this road bed that cuts through here and up the side. So when you look at the road bed, this road bed actually cuts up on the high spot here and on the high spot here. These are really good high percentage spots because a lot of times what I've seen in the fall is bass will use the road beds and they'll migrate with the road beds to get them up where they got to go. And road beds are definitely a key thing I look for in the fall. A tricky thing here is this little gut that comes right in here. This gut could go overlooked by a lot of people, but I have absolutely plastered the bass on the inside corners of these little dead end guts before. So you're going to want to look at that. Now, as the back,
like if you're listening, it's like I guess you describe it as like a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, you're right. It's
kind of what it looks like.
It's a deep ditch that runs in, but then it just dead ends. It just stops. They're very high percentage locations.
Look at the bait trapped in that. Kind of use it like a bowl to.
Yeah, they'll run them right to the backs of these things. They'll run the bait to the backs. And what happens is then, like a lot of times you'll see surface activity, schooling fish blowing up in areas like this. Because once they run the bait to the shallows, the only place the bait has to go is up.
Yeah, that happened on Watts Bar this year in the open. I got back in the back of a cut and was like, oh, they got him back here and they're out in the middle feeding on him.
Oh, yeah, because the only place the bait can go is up. The surface of the water is like another wall to stop them from going up again.
And Frank, I'm proud to announce that I rode that pattern to 8.5 pounds each day.
Outstanding. Hey, but you know what? You caught fish doing it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so as we work our way up this pocket, once you get up into the pocket, obviously you're going to look for the stuff. You're going to look for stumps, rocks, blowdowns. This becomes real traditional fall fishing. Am I on camera there?
Yeah, you're perfect.
This becomes real fall fishing stuff where you've got shallow rocks, blowdowns, stump fields, et cetera, et cetera. And so your typical baits apply here: buzz baits, spooks, square bills, rattle baits, spinner baits, chatter baits, et cetera, et cetera. This is very traditional fall right here. It's the stuff out here that can give you concern, because you're going to need different baits for out here. You know, Carolina rigs, football jigs, crankbaits, etc. Now, as the water cools, I'm going to digress here, but this spot's really good to illustrate this. As the water cools and the fish start to pull out, fantastic wintering hole right here. This is a fantastic winter spot right here, because the bass have everything they need within a tail push. So in the winter, this is what I'm looking for, especially right in here, because this will hold them all winter long in here. Anyhow, that's for a different story, different day. A very overlooked, very overlooked fall pattern that I absolutely love because it's so simple is bluffs. Bluffs are real simple. What I like to look for on a bluff, I call them cave-ins or little tiny short pockets where the fishers created big trenches in the side of the bluff. This is probably a better illustration of that. However I hold it, it's irrelevant. These little cave-ins here are really important.
A lot of time there's timber in there. There's some trash.
100%. This is a real sneaky pattern, and it's very often overlooked. But these cuts in the bluffs, what Matt just said, you get a lot of wood that stacks up in these things for two reasons. One, if you have current pushing down, the floating debris gets lodged in these places and then sinks. So what happens then is it sinks down in there. The bass use that, and they actually will use it year round, believe it or not. They'll use it year round. Other examples of small cuts in the sides of the bluffs are these things. They're not very big. They're probably, 2 boat lengths, 3 boat lengths deep.
Here it is right here. This is Fort Gibson going up the river. Here's the channel. This is all bluff. Look at those little cuts.
Yeah, see, those
There's
are
some timber in there. That's bluff right there.
It's so money.
Yeah.
And so on your high percentage place on bluffs are going to be the bluff ends. A bluff end, for simple terms, is where the bluff will end. Wait a minute, I'm on the wrong map. Duh. Where the bluff will end. These are bluff ends like that.
It's a table rock thing too.
Yeah, exactly. That actually where I really cut my teeth on it, like that.
Okay.
Bluff ends, very high percentage spot. That's what makes these places special. They get bass all the time. I've caught them there in all the seasons. I've caught them there. The numbers of fish that you find in these places is going to be predicated on the bait fish, but you can almost always catch a bass out of stuff like that, especially because of what Matt pointed out. The wood, the cave-ins from the land, the wood falls in there, it sinks. Current and wind will push wood in those things. They gang up, they sink. That was a main pattern of mine on Lake Martin that I fished one time. It was fantastic. So I will say you can almost never overlook that. You have to stop. If you're running down the lake, that's literally a 10-minute fish to see if something's there or not. Literally, it's a 10-minute fish. Wheeler and Wilson, I got on the smallmouth doing that one time, where I'd just roll up and I'd burn a white spinnerbait over the 2 bluff ends on each sides of the pockets and one right down the middle. So I'd burn the 2 corners and I'd slow roll a spinnerbait right down the middle.
Take you 5 minutes.
And dude, and I knew in seconds the fish were there, because they hammered them on the ends. or I caught them in the middle, slow rolling through all the wood down there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Wheeler has some underrated bluffs on it. I didn't realize how much bluffs there were till I fished that open this year.
Yeah, Wheeler's cool. I mean, it's cool.
It has potential, yes. Unless you spend 8 hours a day on one bridge.
Well, if the bridge pays off, then that's good. Now I got all this paperwork here. I got one last trick. So here's a trick. When all else fails and I can't get fish doing anything else, I got to be careful, but I'm going to say it anyway.
Nightcrawler on a bobber.
Nightcrawler on a bobber, 100%. I go as far back up as I can go. As far back as my boat can possibly go. And usually right where the deep water starts to end is the money spot. Now, you got to keep pressing because there could be other deeper holes that you can't see when until you get back there.
Yeah.
As I'm going up, way back up in, okay, the farther up the creek I get, the less important this stuff is, and the more important these more steeper structural elements are more important. And here, steeper doesn't mean 100 feet deep. We could be in 7 feet of water, and this is a shallow bluff. This is where the fish will be. They're not going to be out here. They're going to be relating to this stuff. On the way in, this stuff here. Can you see that?
Yeah, 100%.
On the way in, that stuff. Going all the way back up a creek, going all the way back up a river can pay big dividends on lakes that people aren't really doing all that. There's a few lakes, like if you go to Lay Lake, you got to run all the way up to the dam. It's got a dam on both ends. That's not really the river. In the classic on Lay Lake, I found a river that was feeding the lake. Mm-hmm. I went all the way up that river as far as I could go and caught them really, really good. The issue I had at the classic, which I didn't take into account, was water level. When I went up that river, the water level was 2.5 feet high, and the bass were back there, and they were giants. When I got there the first day of the tournament, the water had receded. The big bass pulled out. I could never find them. I caught limit after limit after limit of smaller fish, but not enough to do me any good. I think I finished 20th or 21st in that classic. But the water came down. I stayed up there too long trying to figure out where the bigger bass went, and I could never find them again. And by the time I bailed on there, I didn't have enough time to go to run my other stuff. So I made a big mistake in that event. But the point being is I was not catching them on the lake with good regularity and went up this river and went as far as I could go, and they were there. They bailed on me 3 days later, obviously. I didn't have a chance to check them the day before. And they bailed on me. Another place that played an important role was on the Chesapeake. I was doing everything I can do, fishing everything I can fish, and not catching any fish. So I said, I got to get up the river. I need current, even though it was, I think, February. I got to get up there, and I need big current. I need predictability. I ran all the way up there and took third. I took third in the tournament, but I busted my lower unit on the last day and only got to fish for an hour and a half and still made third out of there. So it's a place you don't want to overlook. And they're not all created equal, so you'll have to check them out. But it's a good strategy. When I was a kid, I learned that on the Ohio River. I used to run all the way up these little creeks as far as I can get.
Really, like the only way to get bit sometimes on the Ohio River, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. But Ohio River's really a cool place.
They're a little ringworm.
Yeah, dude. Ringworm and a black sensation. Remember those? The little chicken foot worm? They call them sensations.
Salty sensations?
Yeah, salty sensation made by
no
Toledo
way.
Tackle. Yeah, dude. My buddy Dale turned me on to that when we were kids.
The salty sensation. I don't even want to Google that.
It turned out, yeah, don't Google that. You're gonna get bad things. But yeah, it's a little chicken foot worm. Used to be deadly. I put it on a 1/8 ounce slip sinker, which was painful to pitch and flip, but it was money. And that and a little 4-inch ringworm, black and white. Toledo Tackle. I believe Toledo Tackle. And then I think Mr. Twister came out with their version. Mr. Twister.
Not even a picture of the dang thing online.
No, dude, because the original one was a little funky. It had a pointy snoot, was fatter by the abdomen, and got thinner. Most of the other ones are typical plastic worm style bodies, just with curly tail legs in the middle and a one hook tail at
You would
the
think
end.
there'd be like a picture of someone that was like, hey, this is cool.
I'm going to tell you the truth. I still have 20 of those left.
Really?
Yeah, they're in my boat. Now I wouldn't even throw them unless I'm in a tournament because they don't make them anymore. The original ones they don't make anymore.
Yeah, I don't see it at all.
Yeah, you won't. It's been discontinued for a bazillion years.
It's the only thing you can't find on the internet.
But it was, yeah, exactly. But it was cool. I mean, it was so, growing up doing that, I just translated it into other lakes. And whenever I struggled, that's what the first thing I did was find a river I can go all the way to the end.
You know what? I'm ready for a good old fashioned Ohio River Derby again.
Dude, the Ohio River is a really cool fishery. So I literally grew up fishing the northern pools. For those that live up here, East Liverpool, Steubenville, etc. But I used to have the hardest time competing against the river rats down there. They always kick our butts. So I made a conscious decision one year that any free time I had, I was going to the Ohio River. And so that's what I did. All my free time, if I had free time, down south I went, and I fished every pool from Cincinnati all the way up to Pennsylvania. Every pool. I picked a pool and I learned it. I picked a pool and I learned it. And the irony of the whole thing is I made my first regional fishing the Ohio River, of all things. It's a 10-inch smallie beat down. It didn't used to be that way. But it's cyclical. Okay. The Ohio River is cyclical. And so what would happen is certain pools would be fishing good, certain pools wouldn't. A couple years later, it flip-flops, vice versa. I mean, I took the buyer of it's a sporting goods company that's not around anymore. I think it was Adler's. Anyway, I took a buyer out on the Ohio River in Steubenville, and we had flood conditions, and it was really dangerous. And they, cautioned you probably shouldn't launch the boat, blah blah blah. I mean, it was busted, it was blown, and so I said, "Now we're gonna go," and so I said, "Well, the first thing we're gonna do is we're running up to the lock." The guy goes, "We're locking through?" I go, "No, we're not locking through. We're going to fish behind the lock where the current has the big eddy. All those smallmouth that are out there, they're going to gravitate in there, and we're going to have a good day." And I was throwing a Rebel deep weir.
Oh,
I mean, no, not a deep weir, a Rebel deep wee craw, the deep craw.
Okay. Yep.
The D76.
Yep.
And we caught a couple limits of smallmouth. You would have thought we were on Lake Erie. It was
really?
It was one of the best days I ever had.
Higgins, like 3 pluses.
Oh, yeah, every bit. And it was one of the best days I ever had smallmouth fishing out there. And normally, see, in the beginning, we had spotted bass, good spotted bass in the river. They waned and the smallmouth kind of took over. But in the beginning, you literally won with spotted bass. I mean, that's what you.
That's how it was when I fished Galconda back in the day.
Yeah, you won with spots. Now you
Southern Illinois. Yeah, it was mainly a spotted bass deal.
And some of the southern pools still have spotted bass in them, but the northern pools are way predominantly smallmouth. A lot of the largemouth spawning areas got silted in, bad spawning. The weed growth Unfortunately, the weed growth is dependent on what kind of rains you get in the spring. If the river's predominantly muddy most of the spring, you don't get good weed growth. If the river's low and clear, you'll get really good main river grass growing, and then things change. It gets really good then. But it's cool. Would you rather have a drain in the back of a pocket or a deeper pocket without a drain? That's a really good question. So here's the thing. Especially in the fall, okay? The deeper pockets with no drains in the back are really attractive to blueback herring and threadfin. It's very attractive because they don't do good in dirty, debris-filled water. Gizzard shad will run up the creek no matter how muddy it is, they could survive it. So if it's a gizzard shad lake, I'm probably going to look for one with a drain in the back. If it's a blueback herring lake, I'm probably going to look for the dead end, the steeper dead end ones, because the bluebacks need the cleaner water. So that's going to depend on the fishery. But you should check them anyway, especially early fall, because the bait fish could suspend. They suspend literally right in the middle of the guts. And so that's a very important thing to know. So if you're fishing a smaller, deep gut, it's easier to find the bait fish because you just idle across the center of the gut and there they are. So, you gotta, it's a thinking game. I mean, it's a thinking game and you have to keep looking. As fall progresses, the bite gets more predictable and becomes more bank relatable. So as fall progresses, fishing gets easy again. I won't say easy again because you still got to find the bass, but it becomes more of a simpler approach.
Manageable.
It's manageable. See the blowdown, fish the blowdown. See the rock, fish the rock. That kind of thing. Where when they're still suspending, and the guys that are good on forward-facing sonar are going to whoop your brains out if you're not accustomed to that, because it's easier to chase pelagics with forward-facing sonar. Unfortunately. When I was coming up, we didn't have anything of the sort. And so I had to get over the top of the bait balls with my 2D sonar. I spent a lot of time vertically on them. If it was a pocket that was manageable, a short gut manageable, then I can chuck my crankbaits down the center of it, which we used to do on Norman all the time when bluebacks were real prevalent. We used to just run these shallow guts and throw crankbaits right down the middle of them, and then you hit the one gut that's loaded and you
Is this what you're talking about? So this is one side of the creek. This is 10 killer right here. This is one side of the creek. There's a gut. I've caught him in the middle of this gut before, like all back in here where I'm
100%.
But this always stays clean. It's right off the main lake. But if you go up this creek right here, it's got a Terrapin Creek in the back, a shallow area. Catch them all around back here. Sometimes you get back here completely blown out.
Yep. That's exactly what I'm talking about. 100%. And that happens.
And now, those are, look how close those are together.
Right. Because one's dead end, one's got a feeder stream going in it. Just remember, any water flow that comes in, you're predicated to color differences in the water based on weather conditions.
Sometimes it's super clear back here and you smash them. Sometimes it's chocolate milk. You can catch a few largemouth on a blade.
And that's about it. But
sometimes there's bait it's just packed with bait. And other times, like I said, it's cold, nasty, muddy water.
Right. And sometimes you'd be surprised. Sometimes a rattlebait could save the day in that muddy, dirty water. Get on the flats and just crawl it on the bottom. Let it bang on the bottom. We've done really good doing that. Give them something to, hone in on.
What else you got?
I don't know, man. I tried to cover it quick. Did I go too quick?
No. We got 50 minutes in.
Outstanding.
We're an hour and 20 minutes in. I don't think we need to cut out. Like I said, it's industry news in the first half that just happened to break today. So hopefully.
No, we had to cover it, dude. You know what? At the end of the day, we all have a vested interest in this sport because it's our sport. And so we have to cover it. We're all going to have opinions. Like here, I'll give you a quick example. I saw a piece somebody posted on Instagram. 2 anglers. One guy pulls up on the other guy, and they're having words on the lake. And I made a comment My comment was, nobody has the right to pull up on another angler ever. The reason they stagger boat flights is so that you go out at a different time. You have an opportunity to get somewhere first. If getting somewhere first means you don't have the right to that spot, then why stagger the flight? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have, everyone has to have an equal opportunity. So I made a comment. My comment was accurate to my belief system. I found something out later because somebody responded to my comment. I believe it might have been the guy that took the video, commented to my response and said that so-and-so was there first and was leading the tournament. And then that guy pulled up on the spot on the final day, knowing the guy was leading the tournament there. I said, well, that's a different animal. If a guy's winning a tournament, you should not encroach on the guy.
Mm-hmm.
You should give him his due because he's leading the event. So there's mitigating circumstances, based on detail from my comment. But I still believe that if a guy's fishing somewhere first, you don't pull up on the guy and fish next to him. That's crap. In my world, I never did that to anybody. And when people did it to me, they heard about it. Not later, right then and there, they heard about it. And so that's kind of how it goes. Ethics are ethics. If you talk to the dude, that's a different story. If you say, hey, dude, I've been there an hour after you left every day I was there, or an hour before you got there every day I was there. And the guy said, well, I'll take it for the first time and then you can take it the rest of the time. You work it out. That's your business. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there was a tournament on Norm and Ish. Well, Ish said he saw me fishing there, but I never saw him fishing anywhere. But he said, hey, the one spot that you were in? I said, yeah. He goes, I need to go in there. Can you let me have it? I said, well, here. I said, I'm going in at 11 o'clock like I did every day. I'm going in there at 11. So you either be done before 11 or you come after I'm done fishing it. But yeah, I don't care that you go in there. What am I going to say? You know what I mean? I never saw you in there. So you didn't even have to tell me because I never even saw you in there. And we were both in contention, by the way. But we talked about it beforehand. And so I'm like, yeah, whatever. Do whatever you got to do. It's on my milk run. If you're there before I get there, God bless you. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? So, I mean, that's just how you got to work it out. You got to work through it. And so,
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Anyway, I had to not defend my position, but make it a little clearer because there were some mitigating circumstances that I did not know about until after. So there you have it. I have spoken.
All right, folks. Very eclectic and interesting day 4. A lot of education that was mixed in there. We still, like I said, we're an hour and 30 minutes in, so we need to get a full day 4 with the man Frank Scalish. Next Thursday will be October 26th. We'll
yes,
be live
you are
Thursday
correct. And
at
we are
8:30 a.m. with another regular day 4 with Frank Scalish.
Yeah, hey, I might pull Todd in on that one for 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay. Tonight, 8:30 p.m. Central Time, October 18th, Ben Milliken live. I haven't seen another interview that he's done. since he qualified for the Elite Series. It might be his first interview since qualifying for the Bassmaster Elite Series.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm gonna be interested in watching that one. I kind of like to hear what he has to say and what his thoughts are.
Surely we won't have a cease and desist for BTL by then, will we?
No, I think we're good.
I'd like to at least get that one in.
Yeah, I think we're good. Nobody's feelings are going to be butthurt over it. All we're talking about is what, we're talking about. We were merely bloviating.
We were merely bloviating. All right, this has been another edition of Day 4 with the man Frank SCALISH. We'll see everybody tomorrow.